Joining me in studio is Janie Macomber. How do I say your other last name, Janie?
Grillo.
Grillo.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was like that. I was like Grillo. I don't know.
No, it's Italiano, so Grillo. If you want to roll your
Grillo.
R's. Yes.
Oh, and I like that. Yeah. Janie, thank you so much for joining us in studio. Now, it seems as though you might be a listener of the station since you came in hydrating.
I came in hydrated.
Oh, excellent.
Yes,
now,
I did.
Well, I like to start finding out about people first. So where did you grow up, my friend?
Western New York State, Rochester, New York.
Oh, I love Rochester,
I've got
New
some
York.
friends from home listening.
Hello, Rochester.
Yeah.
I used to tour with a radio station out of Indianapolis, the Bob and Tom radio show. They were syndicated across the country. So I've been in snowstorms in Rochester. That is brutal. I mean, I know it's brutal here, but that's a different kind of crazy.
I have a sister in Crystal Lake, so she's been out here longer than I. We spent 19 hours on the thruway outside of Buffalo in a snowstorm from 4:30 in the afternoon till 11:30 the next morning. They dug us out.
Yeah.
Bumper to bumper.
Just a highway,
just a highway.
Oh,
Monday
my God.
before Thanksgiving, a number of years ago.
Yeah. It's
interesting.
It's something that never leaves you, that memory, right?
We wanted to spend more time together. So.
Yeah. What do you talk about for that long time?
You sleep.
You sleep, yeah.
You eat. You talk about snow. It was snowing. It was our thunderstorms.
Thunder during the snowstorm.
And listen to the radio. There were school kids that they'd spend the night in grocery stores or fire stations, and people spend 2-3 hours going around the block, just go back to their office and spend the night there. So it was an interesting experience. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that seems much more intense than when Lakeshore Drive shut down.
I know. I kept saying 5 hours. Pff.
Yeah, you're right there.
You're right there.
You're right there.
Yeah.
I know, and I feel bad. Roger Badish, if you're listening, I'm just teasing you, my friend. I've known people that were stuck there. Roger Badish was there.
It's not fun, no matter what.
No, I would imagine it's not. So what brought you to the Chicagoland area?
I was in sales for many years, and so I got transferred. I spent time in Minneapolis, Omaha, Chicago. A couple times here in Chicago. It's nice to be back. Nice to be from the East Coast, but I have a sister here, so family. Which is wonderful.
And how long have you been in the Chicagoland area?
30, close to 40 years.
Oh, so this is home. Time. This is home now.
It is.
Seems like it. So to tell us a little bit about, in contrast to where you grew up in Rochester, which has a lot of great, forests and a lot of wonderful places to explore. Were you interested in that kind of, forest bathing when you were growing up in Rochester?
Nope. We did spend time, my parents would always take us places.
Sure.
And, I come from a family of gardeners, and some of my uncles were farmers, and we'd spend time in the woods on the farm where my mom grew up. So, nature was always a part of it, and I'm also the generation that, you'd play outside.
Yeah.
You get home from school, and you're outside.
A lot to explore.
Yes.
Were you worried that coming to the Midwest, it would be a little bit different, not quite as scenic?
I was not. I was ready... it's a bad I know I was ready to move. I was ready to leave home. And get out. And I had my sister here, and we've always been very close. And so she's been here longer than I. So it was really nice.
Well, and are you in that area, like around Crystal Lake?
St. Charles.
Oh, because
40 minutes. You were there. You went up the Arcata, yes?
Yes, the Arcata and the Moonlight Theater, which is right around the corner from there. Really great venue, too.
Okay.
Highly recommend for music and comedy and everything. And that's a really pretty area. So you're in a place that it's rolling hills. There's like rivers and all kinds of great stuff there.
Much flatter than Western New York. We've got a lot of rivers and gorges and waterfalls and stuff. So I miss that. I miss the topography.
Yeah, that was my question. That was what I meant.
There's places out here where you can see for miles, which is special here for the Midwest. So that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's jokes, folks in North Dakota and places like that. They're like, if your dog runs away, you can see it for days. You just stand on a chair.
It's true.
Yeah, so we're not that bad. Because I've been through North Dakota, South Dakota. We do have a lot more as far as like scenic hiking and things like that. And do you get a chance to go down to like Starved Rock area or like along the Mississippi on the western part?
I'm embarrassed to say I've not been to Starved Rock.
You should give it a shot.
All that time I've been out here.
Well, and I don't go that often, so it's not really something it's not to shame you, my friend.
Well,
not at all.
Time flies, and I work seasonally for a wholesale plant nursery, so now I'm back to work when the weather's nice, and then when it's not, I'm off for the winter. But I have lists of to do things.
Okay.
Places to go.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I just saw a thing on social media about like sort of the area along the Mississippi that apparently was not touched by the glaciers. So it's supposed to be really beautiful along those areas. Yeah. So I'm curious. I also have a list of places I want to go. So tell us about giving these guided tours for folks and for forest bathing. Okay. Where did this idea come from? Yeah.
Well, actually, we've been connected to nature forever. Mm-hmm. Man is really part of nature. And as far back as the Egyptian, in ancient Egypt, there was talk about how the benefits of spending time in nature. First century monks talked about the benefits of time in nature. And so it wasn't that long ago, in the late 1800s, when the second industrial revolution started, where we broke away a little bit more, but even back then in the cities, people had gardens, they had chickens, they had, we're very much tied to nature. So we gradually moved away from that. But in the 1980s, especially as computers became more part of our everyday life, industrially it was in the 60s for computers, the 1980s where it became more home computers. The nature therapy, forest bathing originated in Japan.
Okay, that makes sense.
And as people were becoming more tech-oriented and spending far less time outside, major health issues arose. Yeah. And yet people that did still spend time in nature, they were kind of going, okay, their health is much better. So let's check this out. Let's investigate that. And so studies started, and studies are still being done today all over the world. And now in Japan, there's designated trails for forest bathing. The name is Shinrin-yoku, which is roughly translated to forest bathing, basically immersing yourself in nature.
Okay.
And there's physicians in Japan and a number Canada and sorry, I had written it down.
It's okay.
Other countries where physicians can actually write prescriptions for patients to spend time in nature.
Okay.
Because there's so many health benefits. Who do you show that to?
Your boss? Yeah. I have to go for a walk right now. Try
to get it in your insurance company to pay for it.
Yeah, right. No, there's a specific forest I have to go bathe in.
Yes.
It just happens to be in Germany. Is that wrong?
Yeah. Can you send me there? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So this became something that became, because I think there are other cultures that do non-traditional, outside the box kind of a thing.
Yeah. And it is part of the Japanese healthcare.
Wow.
And so very much so. And as I said, they have designated trails. Some of the trails have physicians at the trailhead, so you can do your vitals before and after you spend time on the trail.
Okay.
And so I designed and installed a garden at a therapy facility where they use horses as a therapy tool. It's now, the owner has moved out of state, and so it's now closed. But I saw the garden there. It was a butterfly garden, but sensory garden as well. And between that and the time with the horses, so time in the garden and time with the horses, you could see the effect of nature on and primarily children. I was also on a nonprofit, the treasurer for a nonprofit, that we supplied scholarships for low-income families for them to receive therapy. Oh. And sometimes just watching a child track a red and yellow flower, that low vision, but being able to track was a big thing. With the horses, kids with very limited use of directing their arms. Many times they would reach from around the side, and then watching a child, this one probably still gets me goosebumps, reaching forward to pet a child. And the aide and I were just in tears, because we think so little of just that little bit of just reaching forward. And for some, that's just not that ability to do that. And so I saw firsthand, and then I went back to work. And as I said, I work for a wholesale plant nursery now. I worked for another garden center that's now been part of that company. But while I helped at the therapy facility and going to other classes, I love attending seminars. I love attending Zoom seminars, just learning. Sure. We would share at the nonprofit information about the benefits of time in nature. The nonprofit helped sponsor some autism conference for 5 different years, and we would hand out studies. One of them was from the University of Illinois, talking about how kids with attention deficit disorder spending time in green spaces would have a better time focusing after that. And so I went to a Nature RX symposium hosted by the Conservation Foundation and listened to this woman, Brenda Spitzer, if you're out there, Brenda.
Hi, Brenda.
Who talked about forest bathing and the walks, giving therapy walks. And that same year, I was sitting minding a table for the company I work for at a American Society of Landscape Architects, and they had a guest from the University of Illinois who had far more studies than the one I had, and it was just like, I want to make that happen. And it's like yesterday. Was it just yesterday or Wednesday? You were talking about your dear son Declan.
Yeah,
and you talked about how the first time he cried, and you felt that
I could breathe. Oh, I was holding him. Yeah.
And then you had some of that yesterday. And it's like, I want to help people feel that.
Yeah.
And help them get that yearning or craving. And I had a gathering of some guides last week and talk about the hunger for the outdoors. Just to feel that,
oh, yeah,
I want to be out there.
Yeah.
And then what comes with it is all kinds of medical advantages, things that when you de-stress, help you physically and emotionally and your mental health and physical health.
That's how I got through. I love that you're doing this. For me personally, I started hiking aggressively. not like I'm like stomping, not like I'm aggressively hiking, but I mean as often as I could. And to your point, I would wake up some mornings and I could smell there's a certain smell that makes me want to be in the woods. Yeah. We don't live that far. We're very close right now, about 5 blocks from the forest preserve over here.
Nice.
So those are some of the woods that I spend time in. And to your point about, so Declan does hippotherapy. He rides every single week.
Oh, it's awesome.
And, he's and we love it. We love our friends at Equestrian Connection there in Lake Forest. So sometimes he gets to ride outside. And one time we were in, have you ever been to New Salem? It's near Springfield. It was it's a recreated town where Abraham Lincoln lived.
Yes, I have.
So it was so funny because all of a sudden when Declan was able to walk at the time, we'd gone down there and all of a sudden he had to go. So he was like walking in one. So we follow him, like, where do you want to go? Right. And it's kind of forestry there. And we were like, okay, he's exploring. And there was a fence. We didn't even see it. He saw a horse and he was walking to the horse to pet it because that's part of his therapy. Like he walks the horses to their paddock and gives them a carrot, closes the gate. So to him, it was like, oh, I need to go see. To your point, it's that connection that you can't possibly recreate in any other way. So I love that you're doing this. I have to take a break, but I do have regret that when I go hiking now, I'll see moms with like their really little ones, and I'm like, I really should have been out here more often with them. But
life is busy.
Exactly. A little bit. We are talking to our friend Janie from Midwest Forest Bathing. If you want to learn more, go to midwestforestbathing.com. Am I saying, is it Janie? Janie.
Plain Jane. Hey, you.
Janie Macomber Grillo. No, I can't say it Italian. How do you say it with an Italian accent? Grillo. I love it. Well, we'll take a break here and continue our conversation when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150 AM in Seattle, Washington. I know you got some good hiking paths up there too. More after this.
Welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to drive it home. I am your host, Patti Vasquez, here out of Chicago on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. You can go to heartlandsignal.com and listen to our show anywhere in the world, as well as watch us on Facebook or YouTube. And our friends listening on KKNW 1150 AM in the evenings in Seattle, Washington. I want to make sure that everyone's aware that I was talking about forest bathing with our friend Janie Macomber Grillo. I'm just going to say Grillo and not try to do the accent anymore.
That's what I say.
And I want to make sure folks know. So I was talking about hiking and being in the woods. This is something to a different level of experience when we go forest bathing. So tell folks about that.
So it actually it's to do a full forest bathing walk, and they do them at the Morton Arboretum at the Chicago Botanic Garden.
Okay.
I want to make sure that, and also forest preserves. The Cook County Forest Preserve has Wild in the Woods, Wellness in the Woods program. So they have all kinds of activities, but forest preserves, nature centers, double check them, for nature activities and therapy walks. But a forest bathing walk is generally anywhere from 2 to 3 hours if you do a full walk. Okay. And you barely go half a mile. If that much. Okay. And so I trained with an organization called Association of Nature and Forest Therapy Guides, because once I had decided this is what I want to do, first time I went to a walk at the Arboretum in the winter, because it's like, okay, let's explore this. Is this really what I want to do? And I wanted an organization that was professional. I mean, and there are online organizations for training guides, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted something that I felt was really accredited, and so ANFT, Association of Nature and Forest Therapy Guides, has trained over close to 3,000 guides in 70 countries around the world.
Wow.
And now, since COVID, the programs are a little more switched around, a lot more online and Zoom. But when I trained in just before COVID in 1999, I went to Minnesota. As I said, they train them all over the place, but I have a friend. I used to live in Minneapolis, and this was a couple hours north of there. And so it was a week-long intensive where we would do a walk each morning and then spend the afternoon and evening in learning, and then a 6-month practicum after that. And the woman Brenda, who I heard ended up being my mentor for my 6-month practicum, and she was at the training. One of my trainees was from New Zealand.
Oh, really?
So they're from all over.
Wow.
And what is generally done in those types of walks is you do kind of a housekeeping with letting people know we are trained in first aid and forest first aid, wilderness first aid. So it's preparing if you are out in the middle of nowhere. Sure. And you're able to do first aid. And then we start with what we call pleasure of presence, whereas my daughter's here with me, where we were talking about going through the senses. And it's just kind of a very slow, meditative thing in a way. We stand in a circle, and you kind of give a prompt and let people think about it to go from your feeling grounded, your sense of touch, your sense of smell, your sense of sound, and bringing you into the moment so you kind of get off their gerbil wheel and get yourself not worrying about the dishes at home or whether you're things in life that are driving you crazy.
What?
We need. Yes.
Have you seen my emotional support dumpster fire? Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. And we all need it. And the whole purpose is to de-stress, which we need. And then we do what's called what's in motion, and it sets the pace for the walk. And I've had friends that go on the walk that do a lot of hiking and say, that was the hardest thing because you're going at a much slower pace. And then we do a series of invitations that help people focus on anywhere from the big to the little. Sure. And when you're focused on something at the moment, it's easier to let go of all the rest of that and just be present in the moment. And then we always end with a tea, which kind of brings everybody back together. We do some sharing in between each invitation, and yet at the end, it's more bringing everybody back together because most of the invitations and things are very singular. People are doing things individually on their own, sometimes pairing up, but so the end, it also is able to take in that sense of taste a bit more. It's a little bit of a nod. It's not an English tea. It's a Japanese tea. So it kind of is that nod to the beginnings of forest bathing. As I mentioned earlier, there was a group of guides we got together just last week and sharing information on and ideas. And we had one of my trainees also zoomed in and talking about how we can condense that, because it may sound like 2-3 hours is a long time, but it's amazing when you're out there relaxing. All of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, that can't be that amount of time. Right. So looking at possibilities of doing half-hour things just just sitting. One of the things that we incorporate into a walk is what we call sit spot. And it's generally like 15, 20 minutes. Just find a place where you feel comfortable. If you want to journal, if you want to etch, you want to do anything, just give yourself permission to sit and to just be. And that's one of the things we really encourage people to do at home or wherever they are. You know, 10 to 20 minutes a day or about 120 minutes a week has incredible impact on your health. And just setting and relaxing.
And creating new memories, I would think, like that sense memory of like when you are stressed is to like come back to those moments when you were grounded during your forest bathing experience through this session.
Yeah.
When do you start up again? How can folks make appointments?
It's pretty much free, right? I have, and I had just finished training at the end of '99 and set up my website, and then COVID hit.
You mean in 2020? In
2020.
Yeah, 2019. Yes.
2019, 2020. I know. It's like,
Janie.
when you go
back.
I'm
sorry. Time is not, it's so nebulous right now.
It does.
What does it even mean anymore?
Yeah.
Right.
So I had done some walks and then also went through a lot of changes medically and family and everything in 22. And it was just, okay, I'm going to work. I'm coming home. I just need me. So I've not done a lot. I feel like this is perfect timing for spring.
Okay.
I've been involved with volunteering for a coalition that's spearheaded by the Conservation Foundation, which we're working on with the Kane County Forest Preserve and the St. Charles Park District, working on creating signage for self-guided therapy walks.
That's brilliant.
And we're looking for funding if anybody wants to help us fund our signs.
And do they go
plug.
And please, you can
go through midwestforestbathing.com and I'll be happy to pass that on. But we're getting close. We've got our signage down. We've got a program down. The Conservation Foundation, if people are looking for guides, they have on their website a listing of guides in the greater Chicagoland area. I may be jumping ahead of myself, but I want to make sure I get these things in.
Absolutely. For
your listeners in other areas of the country, the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy Guide, the website is ANFT Earth, and you can find a guide on there, a map. You can find a guide all over the world on their map. And then in Seattle, even though they're hearing it later, there's a Cascadia Forest Therapy.
Nice.
It's cascadiaforesttherapy.org, and it's a group of guides from all over the state of Washington and how you can connect with them on things. So there's a lot of opportunity there to find something and to spend some time in nature. And even if you just Google, there's articles and there's research studies, anywhere from a couple of tips on how to, forest bathe, and other ideas on just how to get out. I do have a lot of studies and articles from online resources and books to read and stuff on the website.
Excellent. And you also have a section here on your website about we talked a little bit about the benefits, but there's like folks who are dealing with arthritis, skin conditions. Tell us a little bit about the levels of cortisol if you want. I mean, if you're up for it,
are you kidding?
I know.
I'm up for it. Am I up for it? I'm up for it.
I saw you flipping papers. I'm like, what notes are we getting to?
Yes, here's shuffling paper. It's just, I was more, excited to be coming. Slightly nervous. But I do talks. Can I do another plug?
Of course.
I do talks tomorrow. As I mentioned, I have one about butterfly gardening tomorrow at Empowering Gardens in Forest Park. And so I do talks about forest bathing, and we end with a virtual walk through the Pacific Northwest, through a forest, and also about native plants and gardening and all kinds of things. But that's butterflyjane.com.
All right.
I did not come up with it.
I'm going to keep you for another segment after 6 o'clock, so you don't have to rush right now.
Okay.
I just...
my nerves were more that just
good.
Things that I wanted to make sure was shared.
Yeah, and I'm going to make sure you do. So let's take another segment.
Okay.
Because we're getting a couple of texts, too, from folks who really are appreciating the conversation, so I want to make sure they get the full benefits of what we're talking about. And I also want to thank our friend Sarah, who sends me photos of the dogs that she grooms. So she has her last groom today. It looks like a kind of a doodle, I think, a little bit. So I'm going to take a quick break here and continue our conversation with Janie. The website is MidwestForestBathing.com. So it's MidwestForestBathing.com. And this isn't something like that. Folks can do self-guided forest bathing. This isn't something that you're like, trying to get people to spend a lot a money on. This isn't something.
No. And most guides were not able to make a living unless you're associated with some organization or a wellness facility or something like that. Which
you're coordinating with the forest preserves and the park districts and all those things where people can have access. I love that. More in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KKNW 1150 Seattle, Washington. We'll be right back after this.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to drive it home. We want to thank our sponsors for making these conversations possible. But first, let's say hello to our friends listening in the evenings in Seattle on 1150 KKNW, the alternative talk of Seattle, Washington, and then KTNF, our friends listening in Minneapolis, St. Paul on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minneapolis, St. Paul. Of course, we're here out of Chicago on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. You can watch our show live streaming on YouTube or Facebook, and we want to thank our sponsors, Source Solar. Go to source.solar and make an appointment. Maybe the time is right for you to get solar panels on your house or your business. Join over 100,000 happy customers who have done so far. Also visit MonacoBrewingCompany.com. Please sign up for the newsletter and support the work that journalists. Well, I hate saying I'm a journalist. I'm a columnist, and those are two different things. I have an opinion. I think you all know that. But if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll see my column every single week. This one was on Wednesday because Kirk Bankstead, who has been working on a lot of issues with trying to make sure that, well, first of all, that the billionaire cheese turd did not buy the entire state of Wisconsin or its Supreme Court. So go to MonacoBrewingCompany.com, support the work that he does, and maybe pick up some woke coffee or progressive brew. And we'll be at the Madison Tap Room on April 15th. I always remember it because it's tax day. So come on, hang out with us and tip one back. And let's continue our conversation here in studio. Joining us in studio is our new friend, Janie, who has been educating us about forest bathing. And I wanted to come back to this conversation. Again, the website is MidwestForestBathing.com, so you can learn more information. And we were talking about some local places that have programs like this, like the Chicago Botanic Garden and the Morton Arboretum. And one of the things that came up while I was looking at your website was some of the health benefits of forest bathing. People do that. I always say, the sun's involved, isn't it?
It is involved. One of my trainers, who I mentioned, who was from New Zealand, actually does a lot of her therapy walks on the beach.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be a forest. It doesn't have
nature bathing.
It's nature bathing. And it's one of the things when I do talks about is that your own garden. Find a place in your own garden where you can just sit and relax. Or if the weather's bad, sit at a window. What are you noticing? That's one of the things we always ask is, what are you noticing? Whether it's about yourself or nature around you, it's just, if you're noticing other things and focusing on other things, it helps you let go of the things that might be driving you a little crazy.
What can be driving me crazy? Well, to that, your stress levels also affect so much of your health. Yeah. So talk to us a little about what research has shown in regards to the health benefits of forest bathing.
And as we've evolved, there's actually different parts of our nervous system, and probably just to make it more simple, we often hear about fight or flight. When you get in a situation and your adrenaline's going and you're in fight or flight mode, and then your stress hormone of cortisol increases. And so say we were back when we were using spears and arrows and stuff like that. So you're hunting and you come across this wild boar or a mountain lion, and man, your stress is high and you're in that fight and flight mode, but it's for a short period of time.
There's bursts.
Yes. And so you take home, and then what we don't always hear about is the rest and digest portion of what our nervous system goes to. So you take that mountain lion or the boar home and you rest and digest. And that's where, evolutionary-wise, man usually is. The majority of our time should be in that rest and digest stage. Unfortunately, in the stressful world we live in.
What are you talking about?
We are far too long in that fight and flight mode, in that high anxiety stage. And that increases that production of cortisol. And cortisol does all kinds of things, heart disease, high blood pressure, mental health issues, diabetes, skin conditions, all kinds of things, even asthma. And then it also affects our sleep. You know, when who doesn't love that is our sleep. So when you're highly stressed, you may have a hard time sleeping. So doing the nature therapy or any time that you spend in nature, especially the hiking, is great. But spend some time also slowing down. You mentioned about how you'll spend some time sitting. Yeah. And so just spend some time slowing down as well. And slow your heart rate down. And it helps reduce that cortisol levels. And when you do that, there's also a lot of benefits besides reducing blood pressure and your heart medicine. Definitely do see physicians for things.
Of course.
And when we call about nature therapy, I'm not a therapist. I've not been trained as a therapist. My degree's in biology, but I'm more in plants and trained in this. But don't replace this with seeing your physician.
Sure. It's a compliment. And to your point about like the hunting and sort of what we're evolutionary wise wired to do and how to exist. I mean, in addition to that, we're mammals, right? So nature was our first place, and it's only the last several thousands of years that we have found ways. But even then, I mean, as recently as 500 years ago, even within my own lineage of the natives that lived along the Rio Grande, it was being out in nature, living pretty as close as possible. Yeah. And I used to go to Girl Scout camp. I often talk about East Troy, Wisconsin. And so when when you meditate, sometimes when you do a guided meditation, or if you're in a moment of stress, people will tell you, like, think of a moment when you felt most relaxed. And I almost it's always at Girl Scout camp, floating.
Which is great.
Yeah. But it is the water. It's the, it was raining. We were talking about rain the other day, and my favorite sound in the world is the sound of rain hitting my tent, right? Waking up to the sound of like that close. Sure. And to your point about the senses, like, what do you smell? How does your skin feel? Is there a breeze? Those are the things that we don't necessarily track in our moment to moment, because we don't have a height. Because if you're hunting, you have to feel a breeze, and which way am I going to go? Where's, I'm most likely to be safe. Yeah. We don't rely on those senses anymore.
Exactly.
We're all just sort of like wired to get to work, and even like they say, even like taking a different path home is good for your brain. Yeah. Like little things like that, So
it's really your brain.
So what would you recommend for folks as far as, like, you mentioned the Morton Arboretum? So they have on their website like forest bathing as an option.
They have a section where you can look at it. It's called wellness, and so there's different things that they offer there. We're hoping that with the self-guided signage that we're working on with the Conservation Foundation, that we'll maybe be able to expand that for. I think the Morton Arboretum is interested, and if anybody else, as I said, in the wellness community wants more information, we'd love to share that. A couple of the other things on the health benefits, when you're reducing that cortisol and you're spending time in there, helps reduce inflammation, as well as helping with sleep, short-term memory, a lot of different things with your mental health. And trees in particular, especially evergreens, emit what's called phytoncides.
Oh.
So it's something that...
I'm sorry, phytoncides?
Phyton. P-H-Y.
I was like, phytoncides?
Not fight.
What a great name for something. Phytoncides. It fights the bad things on your insides. I kind of like the idea of that. I'm sorry, phytoncides, yes.
No, but it's a great word. It's a great word. And it actually does help trees fight things like fungus and things like that. Okay. And so trees and less or so, other plants emit phytoncides. And when humans breathe that in, it's kind of like, scented oils or things like that, that the trees emit. And when humans breathe that in, it helps increase a certain type of white blood cell, which is called a K cell, which they're doing studies now in regard to this because they help fight cancer. Their K cells help fight cancer. So there's studies, research going on now to see, does this help, increase in time in nature? Will time in nature actually end up helping fight cancer? But it's still in research.
That's great. I love that. Again, the website is MidwestForestBathing.com. Janie, I think it's fun to, let's take a phone call from Judy before we end our segment, because I think it's kind of fun to bring you guys, listeners together and teaching each other. Judy, what's on your mind, my friend?
Hi, Patty. I have to talk to Jim.
Oh, Jim. So Jim from Chicago is going down for the pro.
Oh, that's right.
I can't believe he's going to be at the pro. I'm so excited. Dan Schaefer from the Palatini, he's like, I want to meet Jim. He wants a picture with Jim, but Jim said no photos. I love that he's like, no photos.
Patty, I don't like my picture taken either, and I have been bullied out of a lot of it, but I still back off and hide a little from it. But all my life, I have, they take out a camera or a recording device, and I just would back up and disappear.
Wow.
I have this, I don't know, it's just something, and I actually saw in like an Ann Landers or whoever was writing the column, and they wrote in about that, and she said no, that she checked around with her people, and there are people like us. And I have so often wanted to say something to Jim because he uses expressions that my family does. I feel like I'm getting echoes from my family. He has all these, unusual expressions that I haven't heard, I think, since my grandmother's died. But
wow.
Yeah, and I thought, well, today's the day. I don't care how long I have to sit here. I am going to call in and tell Jim there must be some connection back there somewhere.
Well, I just love that he rattled off all his heroes that didn't sit for pictures, right? He said Michael Collins and God, what were the other ones? I just had them at the top of my Custer. He didn't say Custer. He said a Native American name. It couldn't have been Custer. Who did he say? Oh, now I feel like
Sitting Bull.
I feel it might have been Sitting Bull. Yeah, he did say Sitting Bull. Jim's going to call back and tell us all of his heroes.
Well, they may have thought they were stealing their spirit. I don't. It's just like I feel like a deer in the headlights a little bit when they aim them at me. And when you're little, they would say, and they would be adjusting the camera, and you would be sitting there or standing there with this frozen smile on your face and feeling really dumb.
I just think it's funny when Jim said that, because I always talk about how Jim reminds me of if my dad was a liberal and from the West Side, because my dad, he sounds so much like my dad. My dad hated having his photo taken. I have no good pictures of my dad.
Well, that's sad.
It's
sad. I have often, when you've talked about your dad, I've often thought, oh my gosh, there's something about him that is so familiar.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, true Chicagoan. No doubt about that.
Well, yes.
Yeah. There's an Irish Chicagoan to beat.
Well, I have 6 nationalities.
6?
So far.
Whoa. I don't know if you have 6 nationalities. You have 6 ethnicities, right? Ethnic heritage. Wow, it's a lot.
Yeah, flags. I have 6 flags.
You have 6 flags? You're like an amusement park.
My son has 7 because I have added another one by marrying a Polish man. So my dad has 7 nationalities.
That'll do it. Well, Judy, what are you up to this weekend?
My stepdaughter has come home from their Telluride home. And she, I don't know. She's like you. I would think after you'd been a long plane ride and all that, you would want to take a day to kind of decompress. But no, she wants to go out and eat. And there's a place out in I think, is it like Crystal Lake? I don't know. One of the lakes out there. And they have a family meal, and she wants to go out for
nice. That. That's great.
So, that'll be nice. And her daughter has had a baby in December, so she will be bringing the baby along. And
that's awesome.
My husband, he wants to see his great-granddaughter.
Sure.
He already has 3 others.
Well, enjoy.
I'm married to a great-grandfather.
Nice. Well, enjoy your time and have a great weekend, Judy. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you maybe next week. We've got to run. Thank you so much, Janie. It's MidwestForestBathing.com, and love to have you back again and talk about as it gets warmer and more folks get to enjoy the outdoors. We'd love to have you back.
And I got to hear Judy, and I got to miss
right the full experience.